Well, I think it is, anytime you are promoting scientific ideas, you're going to have people who are not excited about them. So even a COVID-19 vaccine, our way out of the pandemic, there are people who will online, who will push back. And people will say that you're just working for Pfizer and Moderna to promote their products. We see it every day. And it applies to all the science, whether you're talking about genetic engineering or even climate, you name it. There's so many folks there's such entrenched concepts with political ties that it really obfuscates the communication of the science itself. That's the challenge.
Sure. So I guess I'd start with a couple of points that I always kind of like to reference. So first of all, I guess that my number one point is I think it's everybody's responsibility who's involved in agriculture and food production to be involved in the communications. A lot of times, I go through, I grew up on a small farm in Illinois that, my grandpa farmed years and years ago. And, when he was farming in the state of Illinois, half the people who lived in the state were involved in farming and agriculture. Today in Illinois, it's less than 1%. And so, the point is that it's all of our responsibilities, given that we are the 1% that needs to reach out to the other 99% to talk about the importance of agriculture, and we need to clearly amplify our voices in order to get that message out there. So, I spent years early on in my career at Monsanto hoping that the food industry would be responsible for communication, or the grain industry, or some consortium of companies would get involved. And I think the reality that I came up with is that we all have a role to play, and we need to put in place the mechanisms to make that happen. And it's all of our responsibilities to really reach out to that other 99%. I think another key in the communications are that, communications have changed. I mean, when I first joined Monsanto, you published papers, you did newsprint and all of that. You know the statistics as well as I do, Sonia, that most of the information that people get today is on social media. It's digital. And so a cruel lesson is that if you're not on social media, basically your voice doesn't count. And it's key to be able to deliver that content, in the time frame and with the delivery focus that's going to reach people. And so I think a big part of our content now has to have a shorter technical focus. It has to have more emotion, and it really needs to get the message across in 30 seconds or 60 seconds or the luxury of a minute or two in order to communicate, and that's hard.
Yeah, I think there's a number of them. I think one of the biggest ones that comes to mind currently is, as an example at least, is GMOs. We talk about genetically modified foods that have been around my whole lifetime, and there's a lot of science on it, and there's very little that shows that GMOs are bad in any way to human health as a whole. But people hear the word GMO and they don't know what it means, and they don't know really. Most people don't have much of an understanding of how genetics works in general, let alone evolution, let alone transgenic events, right? So I think for that, it's important, again, to meet them where they're at. Because I think ultimately a lot of people's fears around whether it's GMOs or whether it's pesticides or whether it's, so many different things about our food. We really care about our food, right? But I think ultimately it's a fear of the unknown, right? And it makes sense to be afraid of things if you don't know what the outcome could be, right? But if we are able to get across basic concepts to these people, then it might make them more familiar, which might make them more comfortable with understanding, what the actual facts are around a thing.
I think one of the things to understand is what exactly does the sort of man on the street want to hear? Wants to hear that it's safe. Once, safe. Now, scientists, when you talk about, ask a scientist if it's safe, it's like, well, I mean, exposure levels, and start getting into all these details. Is not safe is not an easy yes or no question. Somebody told me it's not safe, and so you're dealing with a public that, if they're risk averse, wants 100%, safety, 100% certain, which scientists they don't deal like this. So you have to realize that your audience that you're dealing with is quite different. I mean, I had someone ask me about, should I wait for another vaccine instead of the AstraZeneca vaccine? It's like, should I wait for a safe vaccine? And my point is, well, there's no such thing as zero risk. You're going to wait for a couple months, where's the safety there? So I think people have to understand that there are ways to manage anything that's uncertain, and that generally we do this every day. And also let people know that these are common things. We've been breeding seeds for millennia, and and that has, that's not something that's new out of a lab with a syringe going into it. And so I think this idea of these foreign bodies that we don't know, we just don't know. I mean, this, you've got to deal with. I think the idea is to make it seem very commonplace.